Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on branding and marketing basics. We are going to get started. I know it's noon and we want to be mindful of everyone's time. I'm sure plenty of people will still be joining us over the next few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So today's presenter is Lindsay Wilcox, and Lindsay brings 2 decades of communication experience to the Federation in her role as our marketing advisor. She is the owner and founder of Centermost Marketing, which is a boutique firm in Central New York with a specialized focus on agriculture. She recently concluded work on a 2-year USDA FMPP grant and currently manages the marketing for a countywide Open Farm Day and Buy Local campaign. Prior to founding Centermost, Lindsay was the creative director at iHeartMedia in Syracuse. So Lindsay's first interaction with the Federation was in 2007 when she helped develop and launch the brand for our statewide EBT food stamp token program, and we still use that her work to this day. Other Federation-related projects include the creation of our website, snaptomarket.com, public relations for initiatives such as winter markets, and speaking at multiple events and hosting webinars for the FMM Pro series. Lindsay is an award-winning marketer and creative professional with recent honors in 2019 from Graphic Design USA. So before I turn it right over to Lindsay, I'm going to remind everyone that you are in mute-only mode today so that everyone can clearly hear Lindsay's presentation. We invite you to type your questions into the webinar panel on your screen, and at key points, Lindsay will stop her presentation and ask for questions. Those questions will be read aloud so that everyone can hear both the question and Lindsay's answer. So with that, Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Diane. I am excited to be here today and to be speaking with you about branding and marketing basics. This presentation, I don't know if you've tuned in last week to the presentation. This one is probably going to run about 40 to 45 minutes, and then that will leave us with about 15 minutes for questions and comments. I will pause about 3 times throughout the presentation, though, to ask for your insights or if you have any questions. So feel free, you'll be able to type those in. You can type those into the chat box, and then Diane will read them to you or to the group. So let's get going. So today we're going to be focusing on tactics for reversing the downward trend at farmers markets. And these tactics are pulled from a 110-page toolkit and report. And these items were based on a very extensive survey that was launched in 2018. So the survey, the report, and the toolkit were all made possible through a very generous grant from Northeast SARE. So we just want to thank them right now. And also as a result of a lot of collaboration between all of the people and partners you see listed here. So this presentation is one of, first of all, one of 6 presentations. I already gave one, but there are 4 upcoming webinars that you can attend. You can see the schedule for the webinars. You can download the toolkit. You can learn more about the project at the URL that you see here on your screen. So today's presentation only shows a small part of the information and resources available to you. I'm going to go over in a moment how these resources came to be. But again, I just want you to know that because I'm going to be referencing the survey in the toolkit and the report throughout this entire webinar, and this is where you can get them. The assets are completely free. We just ask that you register first so that Northeast SARE and other collaborators can kind of see how many people are downloading these assets and using them. That will help them judge how successful the grant was. So we encourage you to go to this site, download, and use the resources. So about this project, how did this toolkit, how did this webinar, how did this all come to be? So it all started back in early 2018, late 2017, when the Farmers Market Federation of New York began hearing from markets and farmers across the state that customer counts and farmers' sales were on the decline. Markets were really struggling to explain this downward trend, and farmers were really worried about the future of their farms, especially if selling at market was one of their main sources of income. So the drop was so dramatic that we were hearing that farmers were throwing out numbers like a 35% drop in sales. One farmer reported a loss of 70% in revenue. So the Federation was hearing really dire things, like that farms weren't sure they could survive another year, and markets were really concerned about their viability. So the Federation started talking to market managers, market organizations from other states to see, well, was this a New York State issue or is this countrywide? And other states were reporting the same thing. So everyone had their different theory, blaming everything from meal kits to, Target having a fresh food at their grocery stores. So everyone had their own theories, but no one had evidence for those theories. So the Farmers Market Federation, together with Cornell Cooperative Extension, market organizations in Vermont, Western Massachusetts, and Maryland came together and said, let's try and do a survey. The goal was to learn what consumers really felt about shopping at their farmers market. And this was all made possible with grant funding, again, from Northeast SARE. So that's sort of our origin story here. The consumer survey, so that was open from June through September 2018. And the goal was to get about 500 responses per state. Ultimately, there were over 3,800 responses achieved, which is excellent and exceeded our expectations. The goal was to include a broad range of consumer demographics. And then ultimately, all survey respondents were divided into these three categories. And I want you to just take note of these because I will be referring to them, and so will the other presenters in the webinars to come. So the market flag bearers, those are people that love their market and they shop all the time. They're the flag bearers, they're the champions of the market. Then you have your casual market shoppers. They are shopping at the market, but they're not passionate about it. They may even be declining in their attendance, but they are still coming. And then the third type of customer that we'll look at is someone that doesn't shop at the market at all. So after compiling all of the data, dividing the responses into those customer groups, we contracted with Cornell's Dyson School of Applied Economics to compile and analyze those responses. And these 10 insights came out of that report. Now, there are many more insights, and you can see all the data to support these insights in that survey that you can download. But I just want to go through a few of these because I think they're very important. And not all of them, in fact, only a few of them tie into what we're going to talk about today. But without further ado, I'm going to go into these. So the first thing that was really interesting is that the survey found that all consumers do appreciate and value local food, but they don't all agree on the best place to get it. Some of them would prefer to just, go down the street to their little farm stand, pick up, local food, grab it there. Others may have a different definition of local, so they think they can get local food at their, I'm in the Syracuse, New York area, so we have Wegmans. So if they say a local farm, even if it's in Pennsylvania, that may be local enough for someone. But the point is that local food does have value to all three consumer groups. The second thing is that convenience is really important. This is especially true for casual and non-market shoppers. They want one-stop shopping. Now, we all know you can't get a jug of olive oil at most farmers markets, or a big thing of salt or pepper or ketchup. There's things that you just can't get at your local market. But that's what they want. They wish they could have a one-stop shop. They also want a shopping venue that fits their schedule. And this is funny, but they would love open 24/7 again. These are just kind of reasons that people may prefer shopping elsewhere, and it's good to just acknowledge them and know that they're out there, because this is what we're up against. Consumers want to feel important. So number 3, customer service really does matter. And this is something that we all can execute on, is making them feel seen, appreciated, and valued. In fact, that's an advantage, I'd say, over big box stores where sure you might have a Walmart greeter or your local grocer might say hello, but at a farmer's market, you know, the manager can be very active and really get to know customers. Number 4, pricing is really important. And actually it's kind of tied, 4 and 5 are kind of tying together. Pricing is an issue for all of the groups. Farmers markets are still seen as being more expensive, so we want to make sure that we're injecting value and showing value at every step in our marketing and branding. So that will kind of come up today. Customers always want to know pricing. A lot of them said in the survey, and I find this really sad, that they felt stupid having to ask. And sometimes that was enough to prevent them from wanting to even buy something, because they didn't want to say, well, how much are these? And if it didn't fit in their budget, having to say, okay, no thanks. So just, I know markets I work with, there are some very stubborn farmers that will not put their pricing out, but if there's any way you can convince them, I know one market that will actually ask the farmer every day what the prices are and write up on cardboard and put it out in front, because they just know how important pricing is to display it. 6, consumers want choices. They want a farmer's market to have a really diverse product lineup. Again, this might be pie in the sky, but they want to be able to get as much of their food as possible at the market. They also want a lot of farms to choose from. So maybe they want 3 vendors selling berries. Again, these are wants and needs and wishes from consumers. So 7, this is another fascinating one, and I want to pay close attention to this because it's going to come up in your marketing and branding. So for flag bearers, your shoppers that come all the time, they in general tend to enjoy and value the relationship that they develop with the farmers and the market managers. However, for casual and non-market shoppers, they actually don't care that much about the farmer-customer relationship. Now, that may be because they haven't developed that relationship, or they don't want to, they don't care about it. Either way, I know a lot of us have built campaigns around getting to know your farmer and not only getting to know them, but actually forming a relationship with them. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. Why don't they want to do that? Sometimes they feel like farmers are intimidating, or at least shopping with a farmer is intimidating because they don't really, they feel uncomfortable. Again, they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to appear like they're ignorant about agriculture. The other thing, and I think we can all relate to this, you walk into let's say you're on vacation, you walk into a small store, a small art gallery, and there's one person working and you feel their eyes on you and you feel guilted or hopefully you resist temptation. You don't walk away with something you don't want, but you feel the guilt, like it's opposite buyer's remorse. It's you feel guilt that you're not buying anything. So that people feel that at markets too, that they're being kind of watched, and so that's something that a lot of us that are close to markets might find shocking. Number 9, there's a belief that farmers markets should really be at the forefront of the environmental movement. So the green movement, so here in New York State, we're doing away with plastic bags. They're expecting farmers markets to be way ahead of that and already on to the next thing. So this is really important to actually all the customers, they have this ideal of a farmer's market as just being this very earth-friendly environment. So look at your market, kind of see if it meets that expectation. Last but not least, customers really want to feel like a VIP. And again, that's a lot to ask, but that's what they're interested in. And the upcoming presentations are going to talk about some programs that you can implement that can make shoppers feel like VIPs. And they're not necessarily labor intensive or expensive. So I definitely encourage you to join the next webinars coming up, or again, you can sneak a peek and look at the toolkit, which has those ideas in there. So that's kind of the overview of the project. I'll start or stop there really quickly to see if anyone has questions.
No questions yet.
Okay. So I'm going to just run through this real quick. I've talked about this survey, the report, and the toolkit. So today's focus is on marketing. It's one of 4 focus areas in the toolkit. If you want, you can access the webinar I did last week, which was about targeting your customers. But there are 4 focus areas and then 17 kind of lessons or modules within each focus area. And the toolkit really, we've gotten some feedback and people are really liking that there are actual examples that you can reference. It's not here, do step 1, step 2. It's here's how Market A solved, this challenge. They started this program. So it's very user friendly and it can spark ideas very quickly for you. So now I'm going to dive into the topic at hand today. So we're going to cover branding basics, and then we're going to talk about marketing on a budget. So let's get going. So here's the deal. Like we said, consumers in all 3 categories are really interested in local food, but unfortunately they are not thinking about farmers markets first for local food. In fact, casual shoppers are more likely to think about grocers first. So that's the situation. There's no changing this situation. This is the kind of the lay of the land, and this is what we're dealt with. So why are grocers sort of winning over customers? Well, one reason that customers may be kind of turning to grocery stores is these companies are marketing themselves to appear as if they are true purveyors of local goods. And I'm sure you've noticed this, signage that says locally grown, like I said, but it's really local, meaning the state or the region. Or they're going to focus on family farms as a value point and not even talk about the fact that it's not local. So people are, you and I as consumers are seeing these families in the field, and we're feeling good that we're supporting a family, and we're not realizing that the family may be even across the country. So grocery stores are getting smart to the value of promoting local. From a marketing and branding perspective, you are also seeing, I'm sure, a lot of hand-stamped logos, photos of lush fields. There's even sometimes mini markets in or outside of the grocery store. So our goal today is to try and really brand your market and use some marketing tactics to really position your market as the true purveyor of local food. So our solution is to either refresh your brand, if you're starting a new market, to really be mindful of how you create your brand, or at the very least to assess your brand now and look at it, especially with a new season upon us, and see if there's any way you could strengthen it. So our goal with branding is to just clear up the confusion, position your farmers market, like I said, as the place for local food. So we're going to start at square one with, what is a brand? When someone says we need a brand for our farmers market, what does it mean? It means it's your business name. So what's the name of your market? What's your logo? Those are, I would say, the 2 most important things. A tagline is a kind of like a mission statement, or what you promise your consumers. Typography That's going to be the fonts you use, and then colors that you use, and then your attitude and personality. And we're going to go into these in more detail in a bit, but those are the things that create an overall brand. And there's 3 rules of branding. These are my rules. Someone else may have different rules, but I was taught these about 15 years ago at an ad agency that I worked for, and they've really held true for me. And I've noticed that the strong brands follow these principles. So, and strong brands are unique. So I sometimes do this exercise where I show people in the presentation an image of it's like an etching, it's in black and white, of just a field of Holstein cows. And I ask them to try and tell me, well, what's anything interesting here? And nobody, sometimes they'll actually notice things like, oh, that cow needs to be milked or something funny, but nothing jumps out. And then all of a sudden, I'll switch the slide and I will have, one of the cows is purple. And everyone in the room's like, purple cow. So that is not my concept. That's from a marketing expert, Seth Godin. And he says, you want your brand to be a purple cow in a monochrome field of Holsteins. So you want to be unique. You want to stand out. You want to be, unlike any other brand, because remember, you want to clear up the confusion. Like, your market is your market and there's no one else like you. And that kind of ties into the next rule, is to be memorable. So I'll ask you to close your eyes and think of a brand you love. And picture that brand. Maybe a color comes to mind, maybe a character comes to mind, maybe even a jingle comes to mind. But you want to be memorable. So a brand that's memorable is usually very straightforward and simple. The more complex your brand is, the harder it is to remember. So you want to be memorable. And then finally, you want to be consistent. And what that means is that you would use your brand across all of your marketing materials, and you don't want to change it often. So I love this example. We all, being in agriculture, know about John Deere. I love this brand because the logo, it's simple. It ties into, there's a deer, and there's a deer in John Deere's last name. So it's hitting people over the head with Deere, John Deere. It's hard to forget. And the color isn't even there yet. It's just black and white, but it's a memorable name, memorable symbol. And then you see, skip ahead 150 years, and the logo is still a jumping deer. He's even jumping, now it looks like he's jumping up, but he's still in the same direction. You still have the same name. So it's really not changing too much. So consistency is key. And I'm going to ask you right now to close your eyes. You probably don't even need to close your eyes, but what are the colors of the John Deere brand? I'm sure both you can picture it. So that is a quick overview of what branding is. So now that you know what it is, you want to find out, why does it matter? So like I said, with a good brand, no one's going to mistake you for anybody else. Your market's going to be more recognizable. You're going to be able to differentiate yourself from other local vendors. Your market's not going to get confused with a new grocer, food co-op, or another market in town. There was a study that Inc. magazine did that found that businesses with strong brands who use them consistently benefit from an average of 23% increase in revenue. So it's going to help your farmers if you have a really strong brand. Customers are going to be more inclined to talk about your market. We don't talk about things that we can't remember the name of. It's just that simple. If you have a brand that you really like, it's easier to talk about. You know what to say. You can sum it up in a few words. It stays on the top of your mind. And when people talk about your market, that's a form of word of mouth advertising, and that's arguably the most effective way to promote your market is word of mouth. Nielsen research found that 92% of people believe recommendations from friends and family over all other forms of advertising. So you want people to, when they're talking about you, know exactly what your name is of your market and where it is and what it looks like. So now let's talk about, well, how do you actually kind of build your brand or improve on it? So the first thing would be your name. If you're thinking of a branding update, a lot of our markets are just named after where they're located. But if there's also a interesting feature nearby, let's say it's an old lumber mill, you might call your market the mill market or the market at the mill. But it doesn't, remember, stay simple. If your market's on a certain street and you're sure you're never going to leave that street, go ahead and call your market by that name. The logo. So my best advice here is do not try and squeeze in all of the different products you sell at the market. I've been involved in branding projects where a market will literally try to fit in like 20 different things, and someone says, well, there's a meat vendor, we have to put a steak in the logo, and someone's going to sell honey this year, we've got to put in a honey, a honeycomb. And then all of a sudden you have a logo that just looks like a big blob of products. So don't try and fit it all in. And this kind of complex, and I always struggle how to explain this, but you could use a symbol of multiple items, like a cornucopia, because that's a single item, or a shopping tote with some veggies sticking out, because the tote itself is the single visual symbol. But you need some single simple visual symbol that someone can immediately understand what it is and close their eyes and see it. Color is really important. Loyola University did a study and found that color makes up about 80% of a brand's identity. And if we think back to John Deere, that's a perfect example. Same with the two coffee brands below. Color is so important there. You also we don't want to go and do the rainbow here. You want to try, if you can, to stick to a few colors, if even one color. And finally, well, not finally, tagline. So I said it's a promise to customers. In the Catskills, there's a market, Callicoon Farmers Market, and their tagline is where every farmer knows your name, which I love that tagline. Your tagline can be a point of difference. It's a statement that you're making to your customers. Typography is complex again. Different fonts can have really different meanings. So you want to choose them carefully. If you look in the toolkit, there's a really good description of each of these kinds of fonts and how you might use them. And then finally, your attitude and personality. I put two examples here to show the difference of two coffee brands. So, we've got Starbucks tends to be a little more sophisticated. Dunkin' Donuts is a little more happy and upbeat. So think of your farmers market as a person. Are they family friendly? Are they more appealing to, are you trying to have a cool or kind of a hipster vibe? And it really depends on who you're trying to attract. So think of who your brand is and who you're trying to attract. So I have just a few examples here. I joke that I always put the Rochester Public Market in my presentations because they really do a great job with their marketing and branding, and also their SNAP program. So I urge you to check out their materials on Facebook, go to their website. But this is a great example of a simple logo that's showing, it's one color, but it's showing an actual, this brick kind of building is the center focus here, and that's actually mimicking something at the market. So it's a physical feature, the market has made its way into the logo. And because the market's historic, it was founded in 1905, you're kind of getting with this hand stamped look. It's, it's got a nice kind of historic look, and vintage look, but not without being, but it's still current. I think the Oneida County Public Market also does a great job. They are in a historic train station. So we worked on some branding with them to kind of incorporate, they had their logo, but we figured how could we carry that logo throughout how could we kind of expand on their brand? So we took their rooster logo and put it on the train, and we used that in some materials to promote, what had just rolled into market. We named the newsletter the Market Express to kind of tie into the trains as well. So you can also think about evolving your brand and carrying it through to marketing materials. So this has nothing to do with farmers markets, but it's a brand that I see often. I live about 5 miles from 1911 Spirits, but this I think is just such a great brand. Their name is based on when they were founded, which is really interesting. Their tagline's excellent, from tree to bottle. Their color is strong. It's a color of apples, because this is an apple orchard that it started as an apple orchard, and now they make cider, vodka, and other products from apples. And I just think they do a great job with their brand. So this is just an example I like. Another one is very expensive yogurt, but it's worth every bite. And they've been around a while, as the Wake Robin Farm. And they're in Central New York as well. And their logo is derived from the trillium flower, which I didn't know this, but is called the Wake Robin flower as well. And the name itself is very upbeat, Wake Robin. The word wake, you think of breakfast. Yogurts, they primarily are known for their yogurt, but they do other dairy products. But they also graze their cattle, outdoors on rolling hills that in the spring are covered with trillium, the Wake Robin flower. So it all kind of goes full circle, and it really tells a nice story. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions about branding before we kind of dive into marketing.
We do have one question that goes back to the list of findings from the survey.
Yeah.
So one person wants to know, how does community factor into the values that people want in farmers markets?
So that I honestly can't, I can't answer without having the survey in front of me. I feel that is still a selling point for most people, that when they go to the market, they're going to be, I would say a community experience. I don't think everyone is always drawn to meeting other community members, but feeling like they're part of the community just by being there, I think that is a value. I do believe that we asked every question possible, so I'm thinking that definitely was somehow addressed in the report, but I don't want to quote the report without having it in front of me. But that is a great question.
Okay, and that is the only question that I have right now.
Okay, super. Really quick, so maybe you have some ideas in your mind, but where do you get help with branding? In a perfect world, you would find an ad agency and they would walk you through the process. But that would be assuming you have, if you want to if money wasn't an issue, you just go to that ad agency. Some are very affordable, but others, don't be surprised if they quoted you, $9,000 to $10,000, and that's even just a medium-sized agency. Big agencies and cities can charge 6 figures for brands. But a local ad agency may work with you and significantly lower the cost. You can also ask what's called pro bono rates. That's a fancy way of saying free, or even low bono, which is reducing the cost, because As the person that just asked the question, you know, community markets are community organizations. So some ad agency may want to take that on because they're doing something good for the community. Another thing you can do is reach out to a college or university, and if they have a marketing or branding class or a graphic design class, and see if they would work with you on coming up with the brand. Last but not least would be crowdsourcing, and this is local crowdsourcing. This is not using an online crowdsource, which I would not recommend. I've heard horror stories of people that have used the, you know, make me a logo for $5, and the person that made it didn't make it. They just stole it from someone else, and then the company got in legal trouble because they thought they were getting an original logo. So basically, you get what you pay for. But local crowdsourcing is a great thing. So you could do a contest that invites the public to submit logo designs. The winning logo would be obviously used. The artist would be credited everywhere so they could build their business. And then you'd want to definitely give them a gift certificate or pay them. And this logo here is from the East Hampton Farmers Market in Massachusetts. And I think it's cut off, but this is on Facebook. The designer is tagged in the image, so they're getting a lot of attention just for having their logo there. Okay, I'm gonna just pause and drink a little water. We're gonna dive into marketing on a budget next.
While you get your drink of water, I do want to say that someone has typed in Boston University's ad lab work on branding and ad campaigns, and they call it low bono, so it's only $250. So that's a resource that you could look into.
Excellent. Yep. So, and I also feel badly. I've broken my promise. I said I would be done in 45 minutes, but it's probably going to be about an hour. So I think we're going to go right up till probably 1 o'clock. So I'm sorry about that. I underestimated my talking time today. But I'm still aiming for, like, if we can end at 12:55 so we can go through some questions. But the next part of this is, now that you've kind of established your brand, how can you get it out into the world and onto other marketing materials? So the situation here is, marketing is important. It's spreading the word about your marketing, but money is tight, especially with markets operating as nonprofits. So what can you do? So in the toolkit, we're covering 10 different low or no cost strategies. We're going to cover 8 today, and I am not going to go deep into these because the toolkit does. So we're just going to kind of go over them quickly so we have time for discussion. So again, how do you pay for marketing? So what if you really have no marketing budget right now? I'm going to share with you 6 ways that you can actually get some money. The first thing is to maybe up your vendor fees, even if it's by $20 for this season. One of the best ways you could spend that money is to create a weekly event on Facebook for each market, and then boost that event. So you are including every vendor in that. They're all benefiting from that. And you can do these boosts on Facebook for as little as $10 a week. The more money you put in, the better the results, but it's definitely, you will see results with a small investment. So vendor fees. If you do that, though, make sure you're clear on how you're going to use the marketing money. What are you going to spend it on? So have a plan. Don't just say, oh, we're going to crank up your fees by $50 to do marketing. No, tell them what you're going to do and how you think it's going to help. So because the markets are community assets, another thing you could do is approach local businesses to be sponsors. So it would be the Main Street Market sponsored by the local health center, let's say. Think of businesses that would align well with the farmers market. We have a list of about 20 of those in the toolkit, but I mentioned healthcare is a great alignment. Any nonprofits that, you know, sometimes there's nonprofit organizations that are actually loaded with cash and, you know, they exist to help the community. So if they're a nonprofit, you know, even things like car dealers, you know, really any business that wants to reach the community is a possibility. Media sponsorships, that's what I have shown here. This is the Detroit market. You know, their local channel 4 CBS station is a sponsor. So that's a media sponsor. So with media sponsors, the media company doesn't give you cash, they give you airtime. So it could be your local radio station or your online newspaper. You put up signage or you let the newspaper come and table at your market, and in turn they would give you hopefully free or significantly discounted rates. Again, college classes, trade or pro bono programs. So trade is an interesting thing too. If you could gather products from each of your vendors and pay a marketing person in products, some might be willing to take you up on that. And then finally, grants. So if there are any, you know, local grants available, sometimes if you, especially if you are a part of a larger market group or coalition, you know, you can check with the USDA, the county, your municipality, even private, if there's a private company in your area that offers grants, that's another good source. So let's get into these 8 ideas. And these, again, are meant to be kind of low or no cost. So the first thing is your digital home base. I mean, this is a must. If you don't have a website, that's okay. You could use your Facebook page or even Instagram. You just need to have a home online where people can go and get the basic information about you, which is your hours, your location, you know, from what month to what month, and if you take any benefits or you know, cash, how can people pay? If you want to do your own website, it's so easy now with squarespace.com. If you really kind of want to get more intricate, hire a web designer in your local area and they can help you build out this digital home base. But the point is you need somewhere online where people can find you, because we are in a digital world. It's the way it is. Now, just because we are in a digital world, you still can't replace, or doesn't replace, the need for physical advertising. So having a presence out in the world and not just on the computer. And that's where flyers and posters come in. So, you know, we all want to support local businesses. So I urge you, if you're going to print, or if you're going to do a flyer or poster, some print shops will actually include design for free or a very low cost. So, you know, if you don't have a local print shop or they're prohibitively expensive, you can always go online to vistaprint.com and it's very, very affordable. Make a list, brainstorm with your vendors. Where should you drop off these flyers and posters? So schools, childcare centers, libraries, hotels, inns. Last week, someone suggested doing flyers and posters at the local campground to get tourists, or an RV park. You know, religious organizations, churches, temples, outdoor recreation outfitters, any place that will take your flyers and posters, that'd be good for you to get out in the community. And in return, you can always offer to put their literature at your market table. So press coverage is really important because it is 100% free. So this is, you know, when you turn on your local news at night and there's always a few feel-good stories, and the goal would be to have your market be one of those. So to do that, you need to approach that. Sometimes you'll get lucky and a reporter will just come out to your market, or maybe you've built, they're one of your customers. And I'm not just talking about TV, I'm talking about newspaper, radio, even local bloggers. But You want to approach them and give them an idea for a story about your market. So that's what public relations is all about. You just want to earn press coverage. So it all starts with writing a one-page press release, and that should just include very simply and succinctly why this news outlet should cover you. So some things that might be worthy of coverage would be your opening day. So are you doing anything special for the opening day of the market? Do you have an event? Are you trying to add entertainment this year? Will you have like a kids entertainment series starting up? Are you going to do tasting demos? Do you have a really cool vendor lineup that's newsworthy? Do you have an interesting story of one of your vendors? Anything that you would find interesting if you didn't, work with your market, that would be, it's got to be something. Would you tell your husband or wife or partner when you got home from work, would you tell them about what was in this news release? If you can say no, or if the answer is no, then don't, it's not worth contacting the news. Another thing you can do is sign up at helpareporter.com and present. It's simple. You sign up, and if a reporter is looking to cover a farmer's market or a farmer's market or anything in agriculture, you're in this database, so they might reach out to you for a quote, and that would get you some free press. And I mean, it could be anyone from the New York Times to your local news. So it doesn't take long to do. I believe it's still free, and it's a good way to just get your name out there. So this is a market in Scottsdale, Arizona, but it was a very, very warm morning, but this guy's standing out with an actual sign. I was with friends that we were going to go somewhere else. I was like, oh yeah, let's stop at the market. And, the sign, the guy flagged us down. It worked. And I think it might, yes, it's a little hokey, but I think it's kind of an out of the box idea to try. I've heard of markets that have dressed up their managers and volunteers in different fruits and vegetables. So someone must have rented an apple costume, and they stood outside the market and pointed. So yes, it may seem hokey, but a lot of times, actually, we did find in the survey that a lot of people just didn't even know there was a market nearby. That's why they weren't going to the market. They didn't know there was one nearby. So yes, you can put out signs, you can put out A-frame signs, but to have an actual person with a sign pointing into the market could really work. So we talked about having your digital space online. There's also a lot of free places that you can own your space and help yourself get found by consumers searching for local food. So Google, Yahoo, Bing, TripAdvisor, Yelp, you want to make sure that you have a profile there. And not only that, but that it's up to date. Someone maybe 3 years ago set one up for your market. You want to make sure the information is accurate, correct, and that you're able to access it. So you may need to find out a previous market manager or even contact these companies. They all have customer support and say, hey, I need to get into this. If you can prove that you're the market manager, you can get in and manage them. The other thing you should do to help your market get found is make sure you join the USDA localfooddirectories.com. That is USDA localfooddirectories.com. Eatwellguide.org. and localharvest.org. And again, these three URLs are in the toolkit. So if you don't feel like writing it down, just download the toolkit. You'll find this section and you can get those links. Does your area offer a buy local program? Many will offer free listings, so check about that. And then finally, I've worked in local media before, and Local media, they often have a community calendar on their websites because they want to provide a value to the public. They want to be able to say, hey, we know what's going on and here's what's happening around town. Well, so they rely on businesses and people in the community to give them that information. So go in, search for a community calendar at the websites of like your TV station or your newspaper and see if you can enter information about your market there. So that's what I mean by a media calendar. So running a Google Ads campaign, it really is quite simple to set up. You just start at Google Ads or google.com/ads. And you don't need to add any design or anything. What you would do is you would select or submit a few phrases that you think people might be looking up. So in Syracuse, it might be Syracuse local food or Syracuse farmers markets in Syracuse. So terms like that. And then you would put in how much you're willing to spend to get people searching those terms to come to your website, Facebook page, whatever. So you can spend as little as $50 for the entire, campaign, or you can do a couple hundred, but you can spend as little or as much as you want. And it's a good way to try and influence people when they're searching for local food to go to your market. So email marketing, I'm a huge fan of email marketing, mainly because it really is a really high return on investment. This is a statistic that it's a 41 or 44 to 1 return. And considering that as long as you have under 1,500 email addresses that you'll be sending your emails to, it can be free. So you're not even investing anything except time. So I'm not going to get into how you should do email marketing, but I will say that you want to use an email marketing service like MailChimp or Constant Contact. Again, these are free for the most part if you're under a certain amount of users. You don't want to get in the habit of sending emails out from your personal or market email address. Why? Because you cannot manage analytics. With MailChimp, let's say, for free, you can see how many people open your email. You can see how many people are clicking on links in your email. And it will help you make a very beautiful looking email, something that's professional and reflects your brand and it doesn't look like it was just rushed and thrown together. So I really strongly urge you to check out MailChimp. And don't be intimidated by some of these programs. Like I said, Google Ads and MailChimp, they are so user-friendly. They're built for small businesses. They are built to be used and understood, and it guides you through setting it up. You don't need to know any programming or anything. A few more things about using an email marketing service. It's going to protect you too from infringing. Like, people have to be able to unsubscribe from your email, or it can be regulated by the FCC. I mean, it's illegal. You can't, if someone does not want your email and you don't give them a way to opt out, they can go after you. So an EMS will let you, will automatically take care of that by hitting the unsubscribe button at the bottom of an email. So that's automatic for you. So that's another reason that I would recommend you use, like MailChimp or Constant Contact. Another thing that's important, well, okay, so you're going to use these emails, but how do you get email addresses? So that you always need permission. So you don't ever buy email lists. That's very unethical, or borrow lists from another business. Again, you're falling under the FCC regulations. It's called the CAN-SPAM Act, and again, it's illegal. So you have to get your own email addresses. So how do you do that? Well, have the market manager stand near the market table with a clipboard and ask people, would you like to join our email list? You could also provide, for anyone that signs up, they can get entered to win something. Again, you've got to be able to let them enter to win without joining your email list. It's just ensuring that you're not running what's called a lottery. So you can't require them to give, if you're going to give away like a market basket, you have to have a way for people to enter even if they don't give you their email address. But I would say 99% of the time people will. You can also on Facebook right now, well, no, not right now, right after this presentation wraps up, you can go on Facebook and tweak your page's settings so that right below your cover image, there's a little box that can say learn more, but one of the options is sign up, and you can have that link to your website where you can have a contact form and collect email addresses that way. So last but not least is paid Facebook advertising. So I've been on a lot of presentations where people say, well, everyone's using Instagram. Well, no, they're not. Yes, Instagram is very popular among like 20 people in their 20s and early 30s, but Facebook, if you want one marketing medium that's going to connect with the most people, it's going to be Facebook. And yes, YouTube is used by more people, but YouTube is also not used as regularly as Facebook by all demographics. So 69% of adults today use Facebook. So they are on Facebook, they are using it. And the reason I like it is because, like Google Ads, you can decide how much you want to spend. You also can target, and we went over this in the last webinar, but you can get really specific about who you're paying to see your ads. So the example I gave was a lot of markets want to promote that they sell meat products. A lot of people don't realize that. So if you want to do like a grilling or a campaign about grilling meat this spring or for Memorial Day, not only can you target people that are interested in barbecue that live within a 10-mile radius of your market, you can actually exclude demographics. So if you're specifically talking about meat, you probably wouldn't want to include vegans. And vice versa, if you were doing something like a vegan tour of the market, you wouldn't necessarily want to target meat eaters, and they probably wouldn't be interested. So you can be really specific, not only about who you want to reach, but who you don't want to spend money on. So that's what's interesting about Facebook advertising. So that is it. And let's see if I made it under, okay, I made it with 3 minutes to spare. I was trying to get this done by 1 o'clock for you all that have to go back to, you know, if you're on a noon to 1 lunch break, but I would welcome any questions, and more importantly, if you have ideas to share with, we've got about 40 people on the call right now. So if you have an idea that's worked for your market, definitely share it.
Okay, we do have one person who wanted everyone to understand that MailChimp's free plan provides for up to 2,000 contacts and 10,000 emails a month, and that's really probably more than enough for any market.
Right, and they must have expanded. At one point it was only 1,500. So yeah, I mean, that MailChimp is a wonderful tool, and I would definitely, I use it for the markets I work with, and it's user friendly, and it's available at MailChimp.com.
And another person wants to know, how can I access the past webinar?
Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that also at that URL, the nyfarmersmarket.com link?
It will be, yes. It's not there yet, but the webinars are being recorded and will be archived on the Federation website. It is under the ongoing programs tab under the consumer survey section.
But I will say, so if you download the toolkit, the content from last week's webinar was directly pulled, just like this week's was directly pulled from the toolkit. So everything we discussed last week is in this toolkit. It's not in webinar form, obviously, but all the links are in the toolkit, all the graphics. And I believe it's all in that, you know, I said there's 4 focus areas. It's all under the focus areas of branding and marketing. So that's an easy way to access that in the meantime.
And someone else just wanted to thank you. She definitely got some wonderful ideas from your presentation and can't wait to dive into the toolkit.
Excellent.
Any other questions for Lindsay? Are there any other Facebook or social media specific techniques that you find will work well other than ads and creating an event every week?
Yeah, so Facebook is really big on interaction and community. So one of the things I found successful that does take, it's free, but it does take some time, is to interact within Facebook groups. So Facebook is really pushing their Facebook groups. Someone has set up for interests. So depending on what's in your area, a lot of them are big on parents. So it's, again, in Syracuse parents or Syracuse moms, even our towns in Onondaga County where we are, so they're, you know, small towns even have these Facebook groups. And it's where, you know, people kind of go to share what's happening. I mean, yes, you're going to get some spammers in there saying, you know, snowblower barely works, willing to let it go for $100. But you also are going to get, you know, people sharing exciting events that you can enjoy. So that I would encourage you. Facebook within the last year let organizations, used to only be able to join these groups as a person, and now they've let organizations join. So your market could join. And what I would do is you want to kind of lurk for a little bit and see what kind of information is being shared, and then contribute to the conversation. So if someone's talking about something, say, hey, I'm the manager of such and such market. I love going to that restaurant. And then wait a little bit, and then maybe a week or 2 after you've joined, say, hey, I just want to introduce you to the market. Here are a few pictures. Here's what you can expect. We'd love to see you there. So I would say Facebook groups is huge. Another thing is there's been a lot of studies on Instagram and Facebook that show that photos with people's faces do a lot better than photos of anything else. So whenever, and that's tricky because you do not ever take a picture of a customer and not tell them you're going to put them on Facebook. Technically you want to have a photo release form, which you can look up online, and especially be careful with children under 18. So, you know, you definitely need a photo release form from the parent or guardian if you want to include a picture of a kid in your photo. But whenever possible, you know, farmers make great subject matter. You know, the market manager, so let people know who you are. But trying to keep faces in the photos are a great way to get the engagement and shares that you want. Humor goes a long way too. So maybe there's like a really funny shaped tomato or pepper. You know, that can, I know there's not a face in that, but you know, that if it looks like something, those tend to kind of take off and people will share them. I would just say, what do you share? What do you like? What do you comment on Facebook? And really analyze yourself the next few days to see what it is that you like. Because it's all kind of about human nature, right? Something that's either beautiful, funny, maybe it's sad. I mean, maybe it's a story that's kind of heartwarming. You know, what I'm trying to say is it's emotional. Photos and content that spark an emotion are going to perform well, and performing well means people are going to want to share and interact with your content, and that's the goal of social media. So try to steer clear of this beautiful eggplant, you know, it's so beautiful, or look at this shiny red apple, because that doesn't usually evoke emotion unless it's like really, really beautifully shot. So yeah, that's kind of my Facebook and social media spiel.
What are your thoughts on creating events on Eventbrite or other event platforms?
Yeah, excellent. Eventbrite. So Eventbrite's really taken off in the last few years. I still think for most people, they're gonna just go to Google and look up things. And Eventbrite, just for everyone out there, Eventbrite, you can put a graphic and basic information about your event being the market. I believe they have a paid platform too. So it's kind of like boosting a post, you can have it seen by more people. But yes, and Google too. Google has sort of like Google Community, where you can also add events that you have going on. So any listing, I think Eventbrite's a great idea. Any online listing that gets the word out about your market's great.
And that was our last question.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great weekend. And for those of you in the Northeast, we're having a little bit of sunshine, which is a big deal. So enjoy it while it lasts.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you everyone for joining us. In a few days, we will have the last marketing webinar as well as this one up on our website so that you can share it, review it, whatever. So thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Diane.